everyone, and welcome to this very special episode of YPO Scotland Takes the Stage. This week we're celebrating International Women's Day.
And Petra Wetzel takes the stage for us. She was a great conversation discussing her career trajectory in a male-dominated environment, her biggest inspirations, both personal and professional, the drink she's most looking forward to for a post-lockdown pint, and we hope that you enjoy getting to know her Glaswegian heart and German head as much as we did.
I don't know whether it's because my industry is really dinosaur industry, but unfortunately nothing really much has changed in the last, well, I've been doing this now for 13 years full-time, 15 years part-time. Not much has changed, girls.
Oh, really? That's quite saddening, I think.
Yes, I mean, like we have some superstar women in the industry, but the vast majority of people in the upper echelons, we have like lots of people in hospitality and everything, but seeing at the top of their game is more, it's still guys in grey suits, or the likes of, Logan Plant, whose dad is Robert Plant, the Led Zeppelin singer. So that's a completely, I think Georgia's, no, here she is. You were frozen there, Georgia.
No, I'm back now.
So we have some cool people, but the vast majority of people aren't really brewing in particular is just, it's very blokey. So you have to, if you're a craft brewer, you have to have a beard or a tattoo or a piercing. And if you're working for one of the big guys, you have to be old, mid-50s and wear a suit,
So you're leading the way for the women then?
No, I'm not saying that. I just think that there's still far too few of us.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think, I don't know many women who wake up in the morning and go, I'd like to start a brewery, So it's one of those. And also there's very few people, very few women study chemical engineering or chemistry or all of the kind of strands that are needed to maybe succeed in a bigger brewery, And you have to be the top guys are always accountants. And I think a woman who studies accountancy doesn't necessarily then think, I'll run a brewery. They'll do something much cooler than that.
Yeah.
No, I think running a brewery is pretty cool.
Well, I think so too. But I'm hugely biased because that's what I do for a living, So I just think there's not enough. And also, if you think about it, my entire brewing team, there's not a single woman. And more importantly, we haven't had an application from a female brewer in well over 2 years.
Oh, wow. Do you think that's kind of due to previous education barriers or just communication barriers for women?
I think it's still this kind of boys are good at maths, physics, chemistry, and I think biology is where they overlap. So there's girls. So my son, who is in S4, he's just chosen his S5 topics, and it's all sciences. So it's maths, chemistry, biology. He's doing computing science and English. So they're the 5. But I bet you any money that there's not many girls doing physics, and the girls who can get rid of maths get rid of maths. But I'm the same. So my dad studied maths and physics. My mum's an artist, and I did languages. And I don't run a brewery because I'm good at science. I run a brewery because my ex-husband couldn't organize a piss up in a brewery. That's the only reason I run a brewery, But I just, by the way, are you recording this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I would have not necessarily started a brewery. I started a brewery so that my ex-husband could run a brewery, not so that I could run a brewery. And I think it's to do with what I enjoy isn't necessarily the technical side of our, industry. It's all the wheeling and dealing. I love meeting new people. I like traveling. I like meeting clients. I like to get under the skin of the people who sell our beer to understand how they make money. I know how a brewing process works and I can brew, but that's not really, that gets me out of bed in the morning. And I think that's where I think women are much more nuanced in their approach to business Men are all big picture, and I think women are slightly more nuanced.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So what kind of, I guess, following on from that, what would you like to see industry leaders, I guess like both men and women, maybe doing more to encourage this kind of disarming of kind of gender specific barriers or challenges or stereotypes in the workplace? Do you think that there is anything specific that industry leaders could actively be doing to recruit more women or get them engaged or get them interested?
I think one of the things that's really important is to allow leaders to be vulnerable. I am so sick and tired of the person at the top, be it a man or a woman, to have to always be really strong and never like show their weakness. I think that's where we're letting ourselves down. Like I cry a lot at work. I probably cry more at work than I do at home, simply because I care. But my team are so wonderful that every time I cry, they rally around me and go, actually, you know what? We want to do right by her because she cares so deeply about what we do. And I think if we allow, and also it's not just because I'm a woman, I show vulnerability. Why can't a man do exactly the same? So we have to stop this gender stereotyping. But we also need to, you know, I'm German, I'm a woman, and I work in a brewing environment. So that's as many stereotypes as you can, like, you know, put into one thing. If you actually then take the, oh, she's German, so she must be really, you know, bossy or really black and white. You do all the stereotypes. Stereotypes serve nothing because it just puts you down a rabbit hole. And it's the same as saying, you know, oh, all, I don't know, like all Americans are loud. You know, I've got lots of friends who are very quiet and they're American. So I think we need to just stop putting people into boxes and just take a little bit of a step back and then say, okay, how do we work better together? And also hierarchy in an organization is all fair and good about, you know, chains of command and responsibilities. But the people who are, for all intents and purposes, at the lowest end of the pecking order in our business are the people who make the business work. So I'm probably the worst person when it comes to talking about big business, because I actually think that every country should have a multitude of small businesses running it, because that then you're agile, then you're nimble, that we produce stuff so much more quickly than our big peers because we do things fast, because there is no red tape in our organization. And so but it's about letting people shine who do a really good job. But my biggest wish is if we could stop seeing gender, color, sexuality, religion, all of that stuff. You know, like we're talking about diversity in boards in the UK. You know, the last 5-7 days, I've been reading loads about, you know, gender diversity in boards. And they're all really proud that they've now got like 3 women rather than none. But they still don't have anybody of color. You know, they don't have anybody who's, you know, outrageously, you know, gay. Like all of those things. That's or disabilities. We still don't talk about, you know, people in a wheelchair, people who are blind, you know, all of those things are, and until we get all of that right and have the talent of the whole pool that we can tap into, we're never going to get this right.
No, you're so right. I honestly couldn't agree more.
And you know, I love the fact that my 15-year-old son doesn't see any of those stereotypes. It is wonderful to see that, you know, he's 30 years younger than me. He's been brought up in a very open-minded household, you know, he's very lucky. His dad lives in America. His grandparents live in Germany. He's been exposed to traveling all over the world. He doesn't see any of it. And for him, it's really bizarre when people talk about stereotypes. He goes, eh? He doesn't get it. And it's actually like, it's wonderful that 30 years on, I'm really hopeful that his generation will have the most worldly wise approach to life, business, you know, relationships, the whole shebang.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And I do feel very hopeful for kind of like our generation and obviously your son's generation, kind of going back to what you were saying about crying at work. It's kind of a running joke. My housemate Jack, he honestly cries
all the time, like at anything and everything. If he's hungover, he'll cry. If he sees something like really happy, he'll cry. He cries so much more than I do. And he's one of 4 boys as well. So he's from a very kind of male environment. I'm the first girl he's ever lived with. But it's great because he's very in touch with like his feminine side and all of this. And I do feel very...
You've just done it.
Exactly.
You just put him into the feminine side.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what? Just in touch with his emotions. And he's in touch with how he feels and what's important to him. You know, my son is so much more emotionally intelligent than I am. Hugely. I mean, he can tap into the slightest mood change in a room. And I'm so happy about that he has that as a life skill, because it'll be a skill that he has forever and a day. And I think that's one of his superpowers. I always see that, the fact that he walks into a room and he goes, they've just had an argument, Mum, and she's not very happy. And I think this is just genius.
Yeah, that's huge now as well, because companies are now looking more to hire on emotional intelligence than IQ. So that'll be huge.
Yeah, and he's a bright boy academically. In fact, you know, if he doesn't get straight A's in his whatever exams that they're sitting this year, I'd be really bamboozled. But it's the other stuff I'm much more proud of. The fact that he gets like 100% in his maths tests, well, he's just lucky that he got those genes. But it's the other stuff that I'm really happy about.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm so
right, I got one of your questions I really loved. Can I talk about that? Because I read it. He said to me, who's influenced me and who's like my mentor? And there are 2 women who always come to mind, and I want to tell you about them, and I want to tell you why they're important to me. Amazing. So the first one is started out more in business and has actually become a really good friend. So her name is Hilary Jones. She used to be the technical director for Scottish and Newcastle. And when in 2008, Heineken and Carlsberg bought Scottish and Newcastle, she was in her 50s. She'd had a fantastic career. She traveled the world with them. And she thought, I don't want to really work for one of the really kind of huge companies. So she retired. And then by complete and utter chance, we met at a brewing conference and we literally fell in love with each other. And she said, I'd love to get involved with West. And she always says that West is the kind of business that does everything that the big boys do well, you know, like the structure and the quality and the consistency, but we do it with heart and without all the bureaucracy that the big boys have. Because like, see, if you want to change something within Heineken, there are about like 17 layers that you have to get through to actually achieve something. Whereas with us, it's like, okay, we'll do it. And then tomorrow it's being done. And she's been involved with West since 2008. She's like the brains of Britain. I mean, she's so clever. But she also gives us, I always say she's our wise old owl, although she doesn't like the word old in the wise, but she's just our wise kind of counsel. But she has also become one of my absolute best friends through this. So I think making friends through business, and this is why I think YPO is so wonderful. YPO is the kind of organization where you start quite detached, but because you're part of this common network, there is a security that basically says, whatever I tell you doesn't go any further. But see the amount of, especially female friends I've made through YPO, that's just been the most wonderful thing. And I'm really lucky. I'm part of an international female forum. And like my forum buddies like are from Beirut to San Francisco and any kind of place in between. And it's just the most wonderful thing. So like making female friends through business has been the most wonderful part of being a woman in business. And then the second person is, here's my son. Get food, yes. Actually, like I was just going to talk about his, the second, that's Noah, my son. Got like a break in his online school lessons. And the second person is actually his godmother, a lady called Ishbel Grant. And Ishbel and I shared an office when I was a lawyer. So before I started the brewery, I was a lawyer with a big firm in Scotland. And she sat next to me. And she used to say, like, I'm quite loud on the telephone, and she used to kind of grab me and like kind of twirl my back and say, where's the volume button for you, Petra? To kind of turn you down a little bit. And she has been the most remarkable influence in my life. She's the kind of person who would sacrifice her own, like, I don't know, like, not happiness, but just like time to help others. And she's the best godmother a child could wish for. And she's also my wise counsel. So like, I've been really lucky in life that I've got these wonderful women who are all slightly older than I am, and who've really guided me in all sorts of questions. Because, you know, I think when you run a business as a woman, the one thing you can't forget is, like, you know, like, there's this other side to you, which is like, I have a child, you know, and I have a household to run, and, you know, all these other things. And actually sometimes running the business is the least problematic part of my life. You know, it's all the other stuff that goes on. So if you have counsel on all other areas, that's where it all just comes together.
Oh,
That's
amazing. Great. So for you, definitely YPO, the benefits you get out of that, it is these female friendships and I guess kind of what you were saying before, the diverse amount of people that you have access to, that you can, I guess, draw on and learn from. And,
you know, I have made friends with people in parts of the world where I would have never ever thought I would make friends. And it's allowed me to really, you know, I've always been a traveler. I've always loved kind of going like on holiday to other places, but a holiday is sometimes limited to who you meet. But when you have true friends in all these, what I would call exotic locations, you know, then you actually get under the skin of the country and the culture and what makes people tick, and, you know, how people do business in these areas. I mean, one of the most remarkable things is, like, I helped host the Istanbul chapter in Scotland at Gleneagles a few years ago. And the most fabulous part of that chapter was that the amount of female members, you know, now if you spoke to anybody in the world about how many women run businesses in Turkey, they would have probably said very ignorantly, it's all men who run like businesses. And it was exactly the opposite. The vast majority of the members who traveled were women, and they came with their husbands who were the spouse. And it was just genius. And it's just like just turning what I call stereotypes on your head, and really getting kind of, you know, an influence on like how other people do business, like lots of family businesses in Turkey. So like it's like an insight into that, which doesn't just scratch the surface, but it actually helps you understand how, you know, other people do business, how they lead their lives, how they structure family and work in other countries. That's been really lovely. And, you know, I would be really not giving it justice if I said that's only been with the women within YPO. I've made some incredible friends, male friends within YPO as well. So I think it'd be really like, you know, not good to just say I've only made lovely female friends.
No, good. I'm glad.
That's so good to hear. If there was any advice that you received when you were starting out your career, or you'd wished you'd received when you're starting out your career, what would it be, and what advice would you pass on to the next generation of women starting their careers?
The most important advice I've ever given and received is, you know, first of all, nobody knows everything. You know, like, see the people who pretend they know the answer to every single question you'll ever ask them. I think they're lying. But most people, having thought about it, know more than they actually give them credit for. And I fear that even today in 2021, women are still not as good at it, admitting to themselves that they're actually good at this stuff. And so I started an investment fund for women in 2006-7, I can't even remember, it was that long ago, called West Women. And it's basically to invest in female-owned, female-led businesses that are based in Scotland. And I started only doing food and drink, and we've branched it into jewelry and all sorts of things. And the one thing that I realized is how self-deprecating still most women are. And it's not, I wish people could actually, or women in particular, could give themselves credit for what they're good at, rather than kind of thinking, I'm not good at this. Because most women are really good at what they do, but maybe somebody in their past has given them a nickel or a doubt. And, once you've had that doubt, it just is almost like a spiral. So, my aim is to say to people, you might not be good at everything, but the stuff that you're really good at, just shout about it, because that's actually what's required. There are still women who go, I couldn't go for that job in that big business because there are 10 things I need to do and I don't know these 2. Well, hell, the guy will look at the job description and go, I can do 2 things and I can't do the other 8, and they'll still apply for the job, So it's about that. And it's about giving yourself credit for what you're good at. And also, I fear that women, even today, are not as big risk takers as their male counterparts. And I just wish I could just push them a little bit more into going, just go for it. What's the worst that can happen? Well, the business doesn't succeed. Well, in America, where most of our YPO members are, they all know that, unless you've failed once or twice in business, you've not really had a career in business. So, but here in the UK, it's still perceived as, it's a big shame, if your business, fails. And, listen, we're in a pandemic still. So like the amount of businesses that are failing at the moment is probably even more than on normal occasions. So I just think this, just do it.
Amazing. And have you had any risks that you've taken personally that I maybe haven't gone to plan, or have really gone to plan?
I've married 2 men and I'm divorced by so that's probably the biggest risk I've taken in my life. Maybe it's a risk I'm not taking a 3rd time. I always say one of the loveliest things is to be able to admit that you're not perfect. I have made lots of business mistakes. I've done things from a vanity perspective because I wanted to, see what that would feel like. I've made decisions where I've maybe made them too quickly, so I didn't really think about it. I'm the person, our team, who always goes gung-ho, and then Ashley, our finance director, and Ali, our production director, go, whoa, steady, let's just talk about this for a second here. So I am at fault in most of the things that at West have gone badly. But you know what? I wouldn't change them for the world, because it's an experience. There is very few things in life that I regret that I have done. There might be 1 or 2 things that I've regretted that I haven't done, but that's actually a worse regret, It's like the things that I've done and they didn't go to plan. I just think they were part of the journey. They were part of the learning experience, So yeah, just going for it, I think is quite nice.
Great. Oh no, good. And so something a bit more kind of fun. We were obviously researching your company and we absolutely loved your ethos of the Glaswegian heart, German head. Great play on words there, gotta say. And obviously the Scots are partial to a tipple or 2.
Oh yes, it's quite funny. So look, I'm actually drinking out of this is a half-pint tankard filled with good Glasgow tap water, because it's like too early in the day to have a beer. But it's very much like Glaswegian heart, German head is the philosophy of the business.
Yeah, we loved it. And so how have you found kind of implementing the iconic German beer hall in Glasgow? Like, what's been your favorite thing about merging the 2 cultures? Because I imagine it is a marriage made in heaven.
Oh, well, so I always say that Germans are well known for making excellent cars, great washing machines. Obviously it's the land of beer, Germans have been brewing for, since Noah was a boy, and that's not my Noah upstairs. And then Glaswegians are the funniest people. Germans are not known for their sense of humor. My son always says, Mom, you're actually quite funny. And then there's pause and he says, for a German. And we're not known for our sense of humor. But Glaswegian, you just think of Billy Connolly, like the funniest man that's ever walked the planet, you know, he's a Glaswegian. So to have these two cultures merged together is actually really powerful, because it's just, and also I think Scots and Bavarians in particular, very similar in their approach to life, you know. They take the mickey out of each other, you know, that kind of stuff. But our beer hall is not a twee, you know, stereotypical German beer hall. It's like almost like Charles Rainey Mackintosh, who was this famous architect and designer, meets German beer hall. And it's really like, it's just throwing all the cultures together. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong, but it's just been, because Glaswegians, let's be honest, love a drink. And most Scottish people like a drink, you know. But actually the nice thing about today is that because people travel so much, the beer quality is getting better and better, because people just go, well, I've been to Munich, I've been to Belgium, I've been to all these other places, and they make really great beer. So we opened in 2006. In fact, West is 15 years old on the 10th of March, which is really, we're having a lockdown birthday.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you. But it's just been the best combination of cultures through fun, because let's be honest, I work in an industry where people socialize and have fun. So it's just been a really great combination of ideas and cultures and what's important to us, you know. And I think after all of what's happening at the moment in the world, people will really want to have a hug and a beer and just be sociable again, because I think that's what really defines us as human beings.
Absolutely. I could not agree more.
And you have to come and see me for a beer when we're all alive then.
100%. April hits, I'll be there.
Because you've got, so where are you? Are you in London?
I'm in London right now.
Where are you based?
Vauxhall.
So okay. So Hannah and I obviously live in Scotland. Hannah, you're still in Scotland, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I'm in Edinburgh.
So our beer gardens aren't allowed to open until the 26th of April. So we don't know yet whether, and we don't even know yet whether we'll be allowed to sell beer on the 26th of April. So this tier system in Scotland is really kind of slowing our opening down.
Well, sorry, go on.
No, we would love to come and have a beer with you in London, but we
oh my God, please do.
Travel.
Yeah, absolutely. Come down this way. We'll sort you out. But assuming that all goes to plan, 26th of April, what is the first beer? What's your favourite beer? And what's the first beer that you think people need to have?
Oh, George, that's the easiest question and answer in the world. So my desert island drink is St. Mungo Lager.
Ooh,
so
nice.
St. Mungo is the flagship beer. St. Mungo was the patron saint, or is the patron saint of Glasgow. He was a monk and a brewer, and he nursed people back to good health with his beers. And our St. Mungo is a premium lager, 4.9. It is just heavenly. It's pure heavenly lager. And that'll be my first pint on draft in the beer garden the minute we're allowed to serve alcohol.
Amazing. I might be taking that up. And I think on that note, Petra, thank you so much for being our International Women's Day guest. You've been fantastic.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure.